everyone. Today we are joined by Therese Abou-Zeid. Therese is a partner at DLA Piper, based in Dubai. She has been with the firm for nearly 15 years and works primarily in mergers and acquisitions, joint ventures, private equity, commercial transactions, and regulatory affairs. Therese holds a master's in law with specialization in litigation, arbitration, and ADR, alternative dispute resolution, from Lebanese University of Law and Political Science in collaboration with the University of Paris, Pantheon, Assas in Paris. Therese, thank you for joining me. It's very nice to have you here.
Thank you so much, Saeeda. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. So, you've been with DLA since 2006. You've essentially grown up with the firm. You've built your career with the firm. Tell us a little bit about your journey. What brought you to DLA, and frankly, what brought you to where you are today?
Well, that's a great question. We all have a vision for our career, right? But here's what I did. Instead of focusing on a distant goal, I focused on the now, the present. At every stage of my career, I gave my undivided focus to the current role I had. From an early point, I learned the power of now. If you want to step into a senior role, execute your junior role with excellence. And you don't need to chase the promotion. The promotion will chase you. Do your best with your now, and the future will line up to reward you automatically. This has been my guiding principle. #power of now.
Very nice. I think that's very, very eloquently put. And I think there's so many younger women, men that both start out, and it's good to have ambitions, it's good to have dreams, it's good to think of something and aspire to something, but so many of them get so caught up perhaps with that end goal that we forget to live in the today, in the now, and fully not only do a good job, but also appreciate the moment. So couldn't agree with you more. That's very good to hear. And as you grew up, being, it's not let's say the easiest life, it's very demanding, there's a lot of challenges along the way. What were some of the more pivotal moments that shaped your journey and got you to where you are today?
Definitely it hasn't been an easy journey, or full of roses, but working hard is something that I've always followed. Finding also the ability to find the balance in life is something very crucial, and this is one value I try to give to my daughters every day, in every step of my life. So it hasn't been easy, but trying to find the balance in life will actually help you to achieve what you want and to get to your goals.
So did you always want to be a lawyer, Therese?
I did actually. Being a lawyer was something that I grew up with. I always envisioned myself as becoming a lawyer. So if you ask me where my inspiration comes from, I would tell you, I believe that no one can inspire you better than the best version of yourself, because everyone is unique. So instead of being inspired by someone else's success and dreams, I envisioned that best version of what I would be 10 years from now. And I always had, that dream in my head to become a lawyer. After I reach a certain goal, then I look into the mirror again and envision the best version of what I would be in the next decade. So I'm constantly trying to better my best, because there's always a better you in you. And being, your own inspiration is something that I learned at a very young age.
I like that. Be your own inspiration. Be the best version of yourself. Absolutely right. And it's so important for young women and men to hear this repeatedly, because at the end of the day, we should really and truly value the best of ourselves as opposed to the external influences, if you will. Wonderful. So you're with DLA, and the last year or 2 years have probably been very, very busy in terms of just the sheer volume of work that's happening. But of course, the pandemic has also created a little bit of havoc and a little bit of uncertainty in how we've been conducting our business. So, how have you dealt with this at your firm, and have you seen this have any impact on your on what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. 2020 was a roller coaster of a year with unexpected twists and turns. But with every unique challenge comes unique business opportunities. COVID-19 is a unique challenge. Initially, we saw a significant slowdown and a drop in the global M&A market, especially when the pandemic hit and countries entered lockdown. That said, transactional activity levels rebounded well in Q3 and Q4. Today, we are seeing more and more trade and PE sellers looking to bring their assets to market and start auction processes. It's too early to predict how many of these deals will proceed or whether they will conclude successfully, particularly in light of the new COVID-19 waves and strains. But on the flip side of this challenge is opportunity. Remember, the pandemic required businesses like us, like everyone, to reassess their business models and adapt to the new normal. Almost overnight, several businesses were driven to accelerate their focus on digitalization and use of technology, making tech companies attractive targets to buyers. So while on one hand you have the challenge of uncertainty, on the other hand you have the promise of opportunities. In fact, if you were to look at pandemic-driven economic growth areas, technology makes up the largest share of transactions in M&A activities, followed by F&B, mainly in the food manufacturing subcategory. And now we are seeing highly competitive auctions for life sciences and pharma assets, involving a large number of bidders and run on very short timetables. So yes, the M&A market is gaining momentum in those sectors, and they definitely have turned challenges into opportunities. In our firm, like all other organizations, we have tried to adapt to those changes and to make the best out of these challenges and to turn them into opportunities.
Right. Makes sense. And look, I think the focus on tech, the focus on F&B, that absolutely is something we see. I'm curious if you're also seeing a little bit of a shift in terms of the kinds of businesses or where in the life cycle they are. Because historically, when there's pandemic, when there's crisis, as you said, businesses can either pivot, they can do what they need to do, or some businesses actually get caught in a difficult situation. They get caught with financial stress when, frankly, the underlying business model may not be a bad business model. It just happens to, for whatever reasons, be caught in a difficult spot. And in the rest of the world, we've seen that at those times, investors typically tend to be quite active, and they come in and they try to perhaps invest in some of those assets because they take a longer term view. Is that something you also see in our region? And is that different from perhaps the way it was in the past?
Well, absolutely. We anticipate and expect and are actually seeing a number of transactions in distressed assets. So that's really a result of what's happening in the market and globally globally and in the region. So there are definitely activities happening in distressed assets, plenty, and. Also, as a result of the pandemic, we're seeing lots of move to disputes as a result of the M&A deals that happened last year and the year before. So people are trying to test the water and see how the pandemic has changed elements of certain deals and how they are able to avail new opportunities by sometimes going through an arbitration process or some other litigation venues. But definitely there are lots of activities happening as a result of the uncertainty that came consequent to the global pandemic.
So in addition to being a successful professional, you are also a mother of 3 beautiful daughters. Tell us a little bit about what it's like to balance the constant, the juggle between being a parent and a family versus the professional view.
Well, one thing I would say, like for sure, it's not easy. But if there's one value I want to give my daughters, it's the ability to find the balance in life, and we've touched upon this earlier in the conversation. In the rapidly changing world they are born into, finding that inner balance is absolutely important. A lot of life advice I give them has to do with finding the balance. So basically, be serious, but take it easy. Think logically, but follow your feelings. Assert yourself, but be compassionate. Live your passion, but start a business. Be safe, but at the same time, take risks. Life begins to flow from the balance you create for yourself. Look at the scale of the justice, they are always balanced. And this is a message that I like to instill in my daughter's life, in their everyday activity.
So, Therese, one of the things that a lot of women struggle with is achieving the elusive work-life balance. How to balance between a top demanding professional career, but at the same time creating that space for being a woman, being a mother, being a sister, being a wife, being a daughter. How is it that you achieve that balance? And what advice would you give to some of the younger women that are perhaps earlier on in their careers and trying to find that?
Well, when people hear work-life balance, they imagine having an extremely productive day at work and leaving early to spend the other half of the day with family. While this may seem ideal, it's definitely not possible all the time. I have three pieces of advice for women seeking work-life balance. One, there is no perfect work-life balance. Don't strive for the perfect schedule, strive for a realistic one. Some days you might focus more on work. Other days you might have more time and energy to spend time with your family. That's the reality of work life. It's a rhythm. Get used to it. Two, find a job that you really love. If you hate what you do, you aren't going to be happy, plain and simple. You don't need to love every aspect of your job, that's not realistic, but it needs to be exciting enough that you don't dread getting out of bed every morning. Three, prioritize your health. Your physical, emotional, and mental health should be your main concern. If you're ill, don't be afraid to call in sick on rough days. Overworking yourself prevents you from getting better. Putting your health first will make you productive. And when you're more productive, there is a good chance you'll finish work on time and have more time for your family. And always remember, balance is achieved over time, not overnight.
Very true.
This is what I try to do.
Thank you. Very wise words. Absolutely. Not only is it achieved over time, but it's a constant battle. It's a constant struggle. And as you said, right? What works one day may not necessarily work the other day. And it's imperative upon each and every one of us to just keep trying and make sure we do the best we can and, frankly, not feel beat ourselves up about the rest. So, thank you. So, what advice would you like to give to younger women and men that are just starting out their career?
There is something magnetic about people who are truthful. In a world where young people are increasingly becoming harder and harder to decode because they are constantly trying to fit into the mold of someone else's expectations. Being authentic and true to who you are and what you want out of life is a rare quality that makes you attractive. So my advice to young women and men who are just starting out their careers, be true to who you are, speak the truth even if your voice shakes.
I love that. Those are very wise words to live by. Thanks a lot, Therese. It's been an absolute pleasure having you.
Thank you so much. That's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.